Respectfully, I have some issues. First of all, I must say that I am thankful that your preferred knight candidate is antlered. Personally, I possess the opinion that a knight without antlers would be a misdirect most foul. Such a knight would not make the slightest bit of sense from a story perspective, as a hint to the knight's identity as big as that ending up as meaning less than nothing would be, in my opinion, a severe, no, monumental lapse in writing ability, one that I do not expect from Toby, Tricky, Tony, Radiation, Don't Call Me Radiation Fox. For all of the positives of your theory, there are, unfortunately, some glaring issues that befoul your analysis. Assuming, you see, makes an ass out of you and me, and I dare say that you have fallen prey to assumptions most bold. Let me paint a picture for you. I was peacefully consuming the media that which you have produced when I happened to notice a few foul words dance across my eardrums in a manner most figurative. The quote from you is as follows, and it's reasonably implied that Dis's dust is on her guitar. Channel name 905. Nowhere inside of Deltarune is it stated that there is dust on the guitar, nor is it even implied, for you must have forgotten that when monsters die, their dust is scattered on objects, the object of which is for that object to be buried. To prove this, we need to look no further than the piles of Gerson's dust found in Father Alvin's desk in his study in the church of Hometown in the solar system in which the planet that Deltarune takes place on is in. When Susie happens upon the piles of Gerson's dust, she is mortified beyond belief, as she states in this scene. Why the hell does the pastor have that in his OBJ underscore CH4 underscore DCA14 line 13? We can learn from this that this is an abnormality most rare, and one might even say, foul. Gerson's dust should not be anywhere but buried 6 feet under. It is important to note that monster dust is not the remains of cremation, but is what the monster body turns into upon death. Having Gerson's dust inside of Alvin's desk is equivalent to having Gerson's lifeless body inside of Alvin's desk. Are you telling me that Dis's remains were allowed to sit undisturbed for years in the corner of her room, spread across a guitar? Such an event would be a travesty beyond description, except for, of course, but one word: foul. Now then, I have strong reasons to believe that I should move on to the main event. The main course, one might describe it as, if this were, perhaps, a meal, cooked in the kitchen by a chef, such as one featured in a murder mystery, as you describe in this video essay near the beginning. Disclaimer! I skipped the middle. The arguments within were low-key, quite honestly making me feel pissed off. The chef that cooked this theory, however, is not a great artist of cuisine such as Gordon Ramsay, to my great displeasure. You see, this video argues for the knight candidate of Rudolph Holiday. You, of course, would know this, as you were the one behind the inner workings of this video, and, as such, you were involved in its creation. This is a knight candidate that may seem fantastic at first, the true answer hidden in plain sight, but in fact, it is riddled with holes, and if it is proven true, may spell disaster for Deltarune's story. Let us start with one of the biggest issues of this foul theory, the mischaracterization. In the video game Deltarune, which I hope that you have played, Rudy is shown to be, as the wiki puts it, outspoken, jovial, lighthearted, and honest. The most morally dubious thing he does is jokingly threaten to kick the ass of some characters, a threat which he does not follow up on. However, the Roaring Knight, on the other hand, acts in a fashion most destructive. One might even say that it could be considered a rude buster. It would not be unfair to say that the most un-Rudy-like thing that it does is that, if given the opportunity, it will kill, nay, murder, both Tenna and Jackenstein. Is this something that Rudy would do? End the lives of these two poor, mostly innocent Darkners? I think not. Now, of course, there is another major issue, that being his likely role in future chapters. It pains me to say this, dear reader, but I highly doubt that Rudy will live through the next couple days. His condition after going to church in the 4th chapter of the video game known as Deltarune is quite dire, and I imagine that him dying would be a truly horrible moment for Noelle. And if your Rudy Knight theory even begins to suggest that Rudy is faking his illness, any last shred of respect that I have for it will go out of the window. This, of course, is yet another example of a figure of speech. Now, of course, there is another issue here. To create dark fountains, Rudy would be forced to escape the hospital. The most foul example of this comes in Chapter 4 of Deltarune, which, as a matter of fact, is a type of media known as a video game. The knight is shown to be located in the Dark Sanctuary. To understand this, we must first understand what the Dark Sanctuary is. The Dark Sanctuary is located in the church. Now, where is the church, you may ask? Simple! The church is where the church is. This is important to note because the hospital is not where the church is. No, not in the slightest. Continued in reply. The issue with this is that the knight is shown to be in the church between the evening and well past midnight. When Chris and Susie first arrive at the church, it seems to not be dinner time yet, as Deltarune takes place in the fall. Note the orange leaves on the trees. And the sun has not set. While this is not confirmed, just like other theories such as the infamous screaming ape theory, it is still another thing to consider. Even if the hospital staff has already served Rudy dinner, they would have to not check up on him at all between the hours of early evening and early morning, and Rudy would have to return to the hospital unnoticed. Perchance, which I am not just saying, because there are words that come after it in this sentence, and if you have not realized already, this essay of a comment is a work of satire. Spoiler alert, I'm going to try to talk like Rule's card in the last paragraph. Let's see just how many people read this far into it to realize this, or just realize beforehand. Of course, this is not the only day that presents opportunity issues for Rudy being the knight, as Chapter 3 poses a similar conundrum, since Rudy would have to leave the hospital in the middle of the night in that chapter as well. I am, of course, referring to Chapter 3 of Deltarune, which, as I have mentioned before, is a video game. Quite simply, to play the role of the knight, one would have to have the opportunity to go to a smorgasbord of places, which I do not think is something that Rudy can do. The last issue with Rudy Knight that I think I should bring up is how Rudy is handled in the story of Deltarune. You can easily not talk to him in Chapter 1 of Deltarune and Chapter 2 of Deltarune, and in Chapter 4, which is the 4th chapter of Deltarune, where you do have to at least look upon his sprite, you still hold the power to not talk to him. His role in the story does not allow him to have the role of a twist villain, as to the average player, him being the knight would come out of nowhere. That would be foul, or that is what I think. Now, I have been trying to avoid talking about Death Knight for most of this, but I strongly believe that I must bring it up here. In Chapter 1, Des is hardly a convincing knight candidate at all, as she is mentioned very briefly, very rarely. However, Chapter 2 includes a scene that can only be skipped in a weird route, where Noelle spells out her missing sister's name, letter by letter, while recalling how her sister wanted to take her to a city with shining lights, a city not too dissimilar to the city that Noelle is in now. Later, of course, Birdley, who is a character featured in Deltarune, mostly in Chapter 2, remembers the spelling bee in which Noelle was unable to spell the word December. Things get even better for Death Knight when you look back at Chapter 3. tenor mentioning December before a song called Raise Up Your Bat plays. This, of course, is in the same chapter where the knight shows up in the cold place, an area which you unlock with the number 1225, a number associated with December more than certain topics are associated with adults, and the knight pulls out a bat-shaped weapon before fighting you. One might even say that it is raising up its bat for the burning fight. The person saying that would probably be Des. Of course, Chapter 4 gets even better, as a mandatory part of the plot is going into Des's room and finding a code to the shelter, which the knight seems to use as its base of operations, inside of her not dust-covered guitar. To say that the average player would not care about Des at this point is quite figuratively shocking, as I might even say that the average player may know more about Des than Rudy, or at the very least, care about Des. Oh, by the way, all those chapters that I just mentioned, they're all in the video game Deltarune, which is like Undertale 2 or something, but not really. It's a good game, I like it a lot. My reasoning for spending so long on this topic is simple. If Rudy is the knight, one would see shockingly little foreshadowing for this twist if they were to play the game again. If Des were the knight, many things in Deltarune would take on new meaning once the twist is revealed, many of these things being required to see to progress. An opportunity such as this being passed up would be very, very foul. Oh, and the soul being Des is really weird. Weird as in, the weird route would be around 10 times more messed up if this was the case. Comparisons can be drawn to the extremely infamous Piles of Azrael's Dust 2 theory, made by Jaru J, which says something very similar. Perhaps I should ask if this is his alternative account? I would be surprised, but more surprising things have happened. To conclude mine comment, I must say that this is not the worst knight theory that I have seen. As I stated at the start of mine essay, your preferred knight being a holiday is a fine start, but thine attempts to paint Rudy Knight as working besteth for the story fall flat. Even if thou still believe in Rudy Knight, I must ask you the following queries. Wert thine mistaken about Des's guitar being covered in dust? Wert thine mistaken about Des being the soul? And if thou fail to research these topics enough to see their clear flaws, then could it be that you are mistaken, dramatic poseth, about Rudy Knight?